George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, often abbreviated GWF Hegel, was born August 27, 1770, in Stuttgart, the capital of the state Baden-Württemberg, located in southern Germany. He grew up in an upper-class family. His father was a revenue officer in the civil service, and he wished his son George to become a clergyman. George became familiar with the Greek and Roman classics at the Stuttgart Gymnasium, and later studied theology at the seminary of the University of Tübingen. Here, he became involved with other philosophically minded students, who strongly influenced one another's foundation in thought and philosophical thinking. Not wanting to get involved in ministry right out of college, Hegel decided to spend some time in Bern and Frankfurt to become a private tutor. He spent much of his time tutoring the von Steger family's children. Their state was much more than accommodating, to say the least. He continued his relationship with some of his classmates from Tübingen, and actively continued his work in theology and philosophy. When his father died, however, he inherited a large amount of money and dedicated all of his time to his work. The true transition into philosophy for Hegel came with his interest in the critical philosophy of Immanuel Kant. He published his first philosophical essay in 1801 at the University of Jena. Hegel would write a number of essays during his time at Jena, most of which focus on natural law. He felt that formless conclusions failed to bridge the gap between human reason and human experience because they're limited in their context, thus impossible to apply to ideas that are universally valid. He often criticized Kant for his formalist approach in his writing. In 1807, Hegel produced his first major work, called The Phenomenology of Spirit. He intended for this work to serve as one installment of a larger, more comprehensive scientific philosophy. It better became known as an introduction to his systems of thinking. With this work, he achieved significant notoriety and was followed by several works which elaborated on its ideas. From 1808 to 1815, Hegel worked as a teacher, newspaper editor, and headmaster in Nuremberg. The school where he worked still exists today. Its name is now Melanchthon Gymnasium, and it has become one of the most exclusive in the city, perhaps also thanks to the fame of its former rector and professor. He was married during this time and spent the majority of his free time writing, composing several essays delving into the topics introduced in his first essay, and exploring the nature and limits of human cognition. He would continue writing and publishing his works in the late 1820s when he fell ill. He would die in 1831 after succumbing to cholera. After his death, a volume was published containing almost all of his lectures concerning religion, history, and aesthetics. Hegel was largely remembered as a great philosopher because of his philosophy on the progression of history. Now, anyone who has had Mr. Leonard in the past has a basic idea of Hegel's philosophy on history. Remember this? Well, for those of you who need a refresher, it goes something like this. Society functions at a normal operating equilibrium. Hegel calls this stage the thesis. From here, the norm is disrupted by discussion and radical new ideas. This is called the antithesis. Societal norms and traditions rebel against this new thinking, keeping from a total change, bringing moderate reform, without throwing out everything we previously held to be true. This is called the synthesis. Finally, we arrive at a new equilibrium, a new thesis, which becomes the new societal norm until some new radical thought comes along to disturb society into change. This is a very simplified version of Hegel's dialectic, or logic, which we will explain in greater detail later. Hegel's dialectic comes from a constant give and take of radicals who disturb the normal flow of society, bringing about new logical norms. A flow from thesis to antithesis to synthesis. Based on this, does history move in a linear fashion, or is it bound to repeat itself? What do you think Hegel thought? What do you think?